Well, the end of February is upon us, and March is right around the corner. And with that is the start of spring ball and the start of the official start of the 2025 season. For this week, Ohio State's got a lot of things happening. We got some NFL combines to look at. We got some rules committee meetings. We got a couple things internally that we're going to take a peek at as we get this week started. So excited to jump in this morning on the Buckeye Breakdown podcast.
We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All-Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. Is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Buckeye Breakdown podcast. Anthony Moeglin, alongside my partner, Kevin Woidke, coming to you at a new time this week. We're trying a couple things out, as you can tell, trying to do some experimenting, see what times work the best to bring you some coverage of your Ohio State Buckeyes as we inch our way through the offseason here. So, Kev, as we get here on a Monday, how we doing this morning? How we doing coming off of another weekend here? Anything fun, anything big happened this weekend for you?
No, nothing big. Just kind of hanging out. Nice. One of my lone, non-busy weekends this, I guess, half a year. So it was nice to kind of relax, chill, hang out.
You gotta take those when you can get them, because they're certainly few and far between here. But for a lot of the Ohio State Buckeyes, there's a lot of stuff going on, both inside the Woody, inside the current team, and externally with some of the guys that have moved on from the Ohio State program. And if you missed it last Friday, Kevin and I went into pretty good detail about the upcoming NFL Combine, and today marks the start of the combine as the first set of players have arrived to Indianapolis. They got in last night. That's kickers, defensive linemen, and linebackers. So for us, that's Tyleek and Ty, JT and Jack, all of our front four, and then it's Cody Simon on the second level. So they got in yesterday, and then today kicks off a very, very long day. And Kevin, you mentioned it last week. Some things that get lost in this combine experience is like the amount of like mental exhaustion these guys go through. And this Monday is huge for all these guys. So they have a registration, they have what's called a pre-exam, then they have the combine orientation, kind of giving them the ins and outs of what's going to happen during the week. And then they start their team interviews. And you've heard that a bunch on how important that is for a lot of these drafts guys, going through these team interviews, seeing, being with coaches. But one thing you pointed out, Kev, that I think was pretty good last week is that they've gotten potentially like snippets of playbooks. They've gotten stuff to study on that they're going to be like quizzed and tested on in front of these coaches. And that oftentimes can be a deciding factor whether a front office likes a guy or decides that decides to pull him off their big board.
Yeah. Another thing they do, which is kind of an evaluation, is they'll say, give me your 5 best run plays, your 5 favorite run plays, your 5 favorite pass plays, draw them up. And it's not just for line. This is just linemen that have told me this. And they don't want you to just draw what you're doing. They want you to draw, because there's pass protection. What are you going to do? Mm-hmm. They want you to draw the routes, and then they want you to be like, okay, what happens if this linebacker comes here, this linebacker comes here, who picks up who, where's it go, who's the hot guy if they bring too many. And it's just they want you to know the in and out of everything. And that's just something that's really interesting, that's unique, that these guys, it's kind of like a inside baseball type knowledge thing that a lot of, like, if you have a good coach, he'll prepare you for that. If it's kind of a newer coach that doesn't know any better, that would be tough for him.
There's a really a viral-ish clip that went out last year with Brian Daboll from the New York Giants in their interview with Jane Daniels, and Daniels like went through everything, and the clip ends with Daboll being like, "This guy's awesome" or something like that. But you see some of that stuff that when it does surface through teams, hopefully you can get a cool little view of it. John Gruden does a lot of it. He did a lot of it at his at that FFCA thing he does, those quarterback camps. There's a really famous one with Andrew Luck kind of going through that stuff. But that's just quarterbacks. That's 2 quarterback examples, like you said. It's required that no matter what position you play, no matter where you're at, to kind of know what's going on and just to try and impress some of these guys, because all of this is a job interview, right? We've been on a couple. I'm sure if you're watching this from your office desk or you're driving into work, you've been on a number of job interviews. It's a job interview for these guys, so it's going to be a big week. And one of the fun things that Kevin and I did here, just kind of thought through some of our favorite fits potentially. Not going to go through everybody. We're just going to look at the offensive side of the ball today because obviously Ohio State's got a ton of guys who are going to be playing NFL football next year, but handful of them, and maybe you get 5 or 6 that go in the first round this year, potentially, maybe in the first 2 rounds. There's going to be some impact players coming that wore scarlet and gray last year. So, Kev, when you look at this offensive side of the ball specifically, what are a couple fits that kind of stood out to you as you looked at what are some teams' needs and where our Buckeyes can kind of fit into that?
Yeah, I think that the team, I think Donovan Jackson would be a great fit with the Bears, just because the Bears have no offensive line, and for some reason they keep spending money on receivers, and I'm like, you're going to keep cycling quarterbacks over and over and over again if you don't build out the offensive line. I think that would be a good fit. For both of them, Josh Simmons or Donovan Jackson, and then I think that the Browns as well for both. The Browns have Joel Bitonio, who's aging. They have Wyatt Teller, but then also at the tackle spot, we have DeJuan there, but Conklin's kind of injury prone. We don't know what the deal is there. We know Jedrick Wills was an absolute failure of an experience. It's just interesting to see where they might end up. Another team that I wouldn't be surprised if they take, because they already have a Buckeye on it, and it's the Titans. Titans going there, or even the coach just went there. Cardinals. I can see the Cardinals taking a shot at one of these guys because they're another team. They have decent offensive line. They have Marvin, but they need a quarterback too. But in the second round, if one of these guys is available, it'd be a great fit for them because it just adds depth, but also they're familiar with Josh Fry. They're familiar with his system. I think it'd be a good fit.
Yeah, no, those are some really, really good spots. I like the Bears spot for both of our offensive linemen there. And also too, the one the call out you make with Arizona, a lot of these guys now, there's 3 or 4 coaches now that have gone on from Ohio State last year to the NFL, including Justin Fry. Also, you got your offensive coordinator out in Las Vegas with Chip Kelly, who knows all of these guys. So don't be surprised if the Raiders go and snag one of these guys. A couple guys went to the Patriots. There's a handful of guys that coached on this Ohio State roster last year, or Ohio State team last year, that are now going to be making decisions for their NFL franchise. So I got 2 for me. I'm going Travion Henderson. I just mentioned it out in Las Vegas with Chip Kelly. I know that Chip Kelly got really good at using Travion, and Travion's a guy who could be a 3-down back in the NFL. The way I see him, he's got that great combination, size, strength, speed, power, balance, all the things he's got that you need out of a good running back. So I'd like to see him potentially reunite with Chip Kelly out in Las Vegas. And the other one, not so much fun for us. I think Kevin and I, both Browns fans. I don't know where any of you guys, our listeners, are fans of, but I like Emeka Egbuka in Pittsburgh. I think that if Pittsburgh can solve their quarterback problem, which they've tried to do the veteran route a couple times, don't know if they're going to go rookie or not yet, but I think Emeka's got that ability to be like a 10, 12, 15-year NFL vet. Feels like he could fit in really nicely out in Pittsburgh if they can solve that quarterback position. So a couple good options there. I think it'd also be cool if Emeka got the chance to go back home to Seattle and team up with Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think they're kind of would play similar positions. I don't see Emeka as a a legit like number one type guy. I see him as more of that slot guy. But regardless, wherever these guys fall, it's going to be a lot of fun to see where it all pans out. Now, coming back inside, Kev, back to the future Buckeyes, the 2025 version of the Ohio State Buckeyes. There's going to be a slight change in schedule. Now, this isn't breaking news by any means. This was announced a few days ago. But the Ohio State Buckeyes are going to delay the start of their spring ball season until I believe it's March 15th. It's when the guys all come back from spring break. Now, typically it would be, and you're going to see it all across the country. Pretty much every other college program is going to start their spring ball on March 3rd. So that's in about a week. But Ohio State's not going to do that. And the reason behind that is because they just finished playing football a month ago. 4 weeks ago, with January 20th was when they last suited up for a football game. They're going to delay the start of spring ball, Kev, and just kind of push that back just because they had an extra 2 months of practice. Like, I think this is a really good move here by Coach Day.
I agree. I think it's also the what am I blanking on it? Coach Mix program. Coach Mix program is built out to extend a certain amount of time, and I think that's the more important. You gotta get these guys right. Like, they've gotten enough practice, they've seen enough tape of them on the field. They obviously need to do drills. They have new coaches. I'm not saying they don't need that, but the need for weight room time and getting all that in, because that lays the foundation for the rest of the year. Like, whether it be, like, you don't want, especially in college football, you don't want to sacrifice growing strength and growing speed and growing agility for drills on drills on drills on drills on drills on drills. It's just, you can't sacrifice that. They don't sacrifice in the summer. They won't sacrifice in the winter. Coach Mick, it's his favorite time of year. Winter is coming. It shows up real quick and really, really hard. So it's you get like a week off usually after that bowl game if you don't make the national championship, and then you're done until, like, you get discretionary optional lifts through January. February 1 hits, and it is like a brick wall. I mean, if you're by a moving car, that's what it feels like. You're up at 6 a.m., you're exhausted. I fell asleep once on the stairs leading up to my room, and my roommates were like, "What is going on?" And it was just after a hard workout. And
jeez, oh man. What was you see him a little bit on social media, and obviously I never experienced a Coach Mick workout, but what are some of the hallmarks of a Coach Mick style workout? I know the mat drills are big, the tire drills are always a big deal. What are some that stick out to you?
Yeah, the mat drills were a blast. I always loved them. I loved competing. The worst were, like, you'd have like a Friday. You'd go in, you'd do leg, you'd do whole body workout. Then you'd go out into the field. So you start out on the field, do your warm up, do your running, and then you'd come inside, lift, do all that, tire your body out. Then you'd go outside, and it was pushing something. You didn't know what it was. It was either one of those giant sleds with a strength coach like Coach Yulee standing on it, which Coach Yulee's in great shape. I loved when Coach Yulee was standing on it. Well, some other strength coaches were a little bit still in their bulking stage and getting built, and I'm like, okay, I don't want these guys on it. So then, or you had these boxes. They're like, you see them pushing it on videos. They're the worst things ever. It's basically a bear crawl across the field and back a bunch of times, or it's your partner is sitting in the box, and it's like it's actually about the size of my desk right now that I'm looking at. It's probably 3.5 feet across, 2 feet deep, and it makes a rectangle. It's got like velvet on the bottom. You're just pushing it across the turf. You're bent over. Your blood's rushing to your head. You're just running. Your legs are feeling like Jell-O. And then the other side of it, the worst one, is when you have your partner sitting in it and you're walking backwards with them sitting in it, and you have a harness on you, and it is, I mean, you want to talk about burning. I mean, you don't walk, you sit in the cold tub and you barely feel it for the first 3 minutes because your legs are just numb.
Dude.
That's just a couple of them. And then everyone's seen the clips of the Valentine's Day workout, the Harley Davidson workout. It's just, he has so much fun. He's so creative. It's just, he doesn't show he's having fun, but I know deep down every second of it.
All those strength, dude. You going through that just gives me the chills, man. Like I thought I was just, you were saying I'm late for a workout because ours weren't to that extent. Our big one was the St. Patty's Day Massacre is what we called it. And I'm sure every coach, everybody has some kind, like you said, on Valentine's, you got a big one. You got the Harley Davidson workout. Our big one was the St. Patty's Day Massacre. It was something outside, some kind of a team thing. We didn't know what it was, but the night before, it was always a Friday morning, and we all had to like load up the trucks and load up our cars with like whatever weights we needed, whatever chains we needed, all that stuff. But those were, you talk about, scoring touchdowns and making big plays and doing all that stuff. All that is done and worked on now. And you make a really good point outside of like, some of those memories, but the foundation that he builds and the strength program builds in these kids is huge because now it's all different. Now you're preparing for a 16-game season, an 18-game season, whatever it ends up being. This is a whole different ballgame. You're preparing these kids for an NFL-style season, and it's really important to not miss on any of that stuff and to make sure that you get it in. I will say, although they are pushing it back, they're still getting a month's worth of work. So the start of spring ball will be on March 15th. The end of it will be the spring showcase is what they're calling it. It's always been the spring game, which will take place on April the 12th. So you'll get 4 weeks worth of work, which is plenty. And it'll be enough to get all the new defensive schemes inputted into the system, all the new offensive stuff, whatever you need. But Kev, a big change in college football, and you're starting to see some ripples of this. Texas has canceled their spring game. Nebraska has canceled their spring game, and both are cited to, hey, we had guys play well, and then they transferred the next week because the spring transfer window opens the day after or that Monday after. So it would be if the spring game's on the 12th, I think it's the 15th or the 16th, there's a transfer window. So now these coaches are going to start approaching this spring game a little bit differently, and Ohio State is hinting at making it more of a practice style as opposed to a scarlet versus gray type of a game.
Yeah, I mean, when you're at a program where you're not the cream of the crop, where you're not the top, which is shocking because Texas is, after last year, it should be up there, but I get it. If your kid, if the guy's good and doesn't like the scheme or doesn't like the coach and he puts something on film, I totally get it. Like, I don't personally, I never had any NFL aspirate. I would have loved to go, but I mean, I was a walk-on. I wasn't really starting. I kind of knew after my junior year when I was still in the two deep that I'm like, it probably isn't it. But, some guys like to go out and try and do it. And Joe Burrow is a great example of that. But I never had any intention to go anywhere but Ohio State. Never wanted to leave. But some of these guys are like, hey, I need to go out and find my spot. Like, I mean, they're just thinking off the top of my head, like there's some good players at Missouri. There's some good players like Luther Muhammad. I think that's who it was. Is that the wide receiver that I'm thinking of? I might be blanking on that.
You're on your own here right now.
They had a couple good players, but it's like
Luther Burden. Luther Burden.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
Luther Burden. I think Luther Muhammad played for Ohio State basketball.
Which side note? We don't have to get into OSU basketball. Not our best.
I would love to start doing OSU basketball.
We can talk OSU.
A lot of comments about that. But no, it's just like you got some players at some of these schools that are like, hey, we're not going to compete for anything. I want to go win. It's similar in the NFL when Myles Garrett's like, I want to go compete for a championship. Some of these kids want to go compete for championships. Mm-hmm. Caleb Downs wanted to go compete for a championship, and he did and won.
Yeah.
But he didn't have any faith in that coaching staff in Alabama. Hmm. I mean, call a spade, rightfully so, because they didn't make the playoff. I mean, you want me to sugarcoat it, I will, but that's not what I do. I mean, it's just crazy, and that's what some people are able to do. That's where I think NCAA kind of needs to step in and prevent people from doing that. Because imagine kids bouncing from school to school to school, like, oh, this is the Vegas favorite. I can go to that one this year. Then they finish and like, Ohio State's still the favorite, but who's trending up? Tennessee. I'm going to jump over to Tennessee. Like the NCAA needs to step in and put limits or restrictions or anything on it because they're still going to try and game the system by people transferring and stuff like that. But you hate to see when the NCAA denies it for reasons, even though the person leaves for a good reason. But what are you going to do? I think the NCAA needs to start putting in guardrails.
You definitely need to start putting in something where we talked about it. We've talked about it a couple times. We're going to talk about it a bunch more because I think we view this exactly the same, and I think we have some pretty strong opinions on it. But in my thought of it too is that not only do you sacrifice, it's just kind of weird. You get to go to 4 schools in 4 years, or 3 schools in 4 years, whatever it is. Like, my thing is like, yeah, if you can go to the NFL, it's awesome. There's a lot of guys who are doing it to go put on tape what they can do. Obviously, I wasn't that guy. You weren't that guy. What I think was special to me about my college football is like, I know where I can go home to, right? I know you can always go back to Ohio State. You always got your boys who you played with. I got my guys who I played with and I'm still best friends with to this day. And it's like that relationship part of it's also really important too, where, you start transferring all around. Now you look at DJ Uiagalelei, guy's been at 5 schools in 6 years. Where's he going to go back to? Is he going to go back to Oregon State, or is he going to go back to Florida State, or is he going to go back to Clemson? Like, you don't have that when you start bouncing around. And I think that part's tough. And I do see like the spring game stuff changing, because another element to this, Kev, is that, you watch, let's say it is Akron's spring game, and they had a dude ball out. Well, all of a sudden, Ohio State just found $200,000 where they can just call him up and be like, "Hey, dude, come on down." So it's like, I don't know that it's always to that extent, but that's also a possibility there. So you're going to see some changes to that stuff. Ohio State's game, or April Showcase, or Spring Showcase is what they're calling it, is on April the 12th. Tickets are available. We aren't plugging for Ohio State, not that you need it, but I did see that they are out and available now. So could be fun there. And as that stuff continues to change. All right, Kev, 2 more things I want to get to. One's on the board, one is not. We're going to start with the one that's on the board here. This is potentially a sneaky big week in college football. We talked about last week how the athletic directors from the Big Ten and the SEC were getting together to meet to determine what the status of college football is moving forward, what the status of the college football playoff is moving forward. We're still waiting to see official fallout from that. And once there is, obviously we'll talk about it. But a big week this week in college football. The College Football Rules Committee is getting together to meet to determine what needs to change in college football, if anything. Why this is so important is because these meetings last year at this time spurred the coach-to-player communication, where now you have coaches who can talk to the quarterbacks, can talk to the green dot on defense, and get plays in and out because of the sign stealing stuff that we all are. It's very close to our hearts, but that came from these meetings. Don't know, Kev, if there's anything that's on your mind of like, hey, these rules need to change, but it could be a big week and see some stuff come from these meetings here.
Yeah. There's a few things I'd change, but I don't know if I can say them. One thing that's interesting, the Rules Committee meets once a year, but they do have emergency meetings like they did after Oregon who's their coach? Why am I blanking on his name?
Dan Lanning.
When Dan Lanning said he couldn't beat Ohio State with 11 players, so he needed 12.
Yeah.
Factual. You saw what happened.
It's fact. It's fact.
What happened? He had 11. I just think that it's good that they evaluate these things. I remember when they changed targeting, where it's like, hey, I don't know if they should be suspended for the first half of the following game. I think, hey, if it's warranted, have a review process after the game to see, hey, does this man deserve? The NHL does it. Mm-hmm. It gets a game misconduct, then goes to the committee, then it gets appealed. But that's professional. I think there needs to be a little bit of a adjustment to targeting, because if someone gets a targeting in the first play of the third quarter, they're out for that whole. Like, if someone gets a targeting on the last play of the second quarter, they're out for a half. If they get a targeting one play later, they are out for 2 halves. Like, it doesn't really add up. I think it should be, hey, you're gone for the game, you're done for the day, if they warrant it. And then if it was severe enough, then there can be additional penalties. But it's too, I don't know the right phrase, too abrupt.
Yeah.
That's me.
And it's too black and white. Like the targeting conversation is like, it's either yes or no. And I think that it more falls into, remember back years ago when they changed the face mask penalty to a personal foul and a 5-yarder, right? That's where it needs to be. Like, in my opinion, there's got to be some subjectivity to it, because like not all of them should even require an ejection, right? Sometimes defensive guys have it already impossible to play their positions. And then you go and you're trying to strike somebody, you're trying to hit them in the midsection, and they lower their shoulder. And then all of a sudden you're clipping them in the head and you're ejected, right? Where it was like,
right.
There's certainly some where, you guys are spearing and going helmet to helmet, for sure. Get them out and do some punishment there. But I think that could be that could be some good conversation there for sure. So we'll see what happens. Maybe nothing happens. Maybe something happens. But those meetings are kicking off this week. So a lot to come from there. All right, last thing. This is a surprise. Didn't even tell you about this before. Forgot about it until just right now. But Saturday in the Horseshoe is a very fun thing going on. We got pro hockey. We got the Stadium Series. We got the Blue Jackets versus the Detroit Red Wings. So it should be a lot of fun. The Jackets are awesome. I'm not the biggest hockey fan in the world, but the Jackets are really good. Kev, I don't know. Does it look like you knew that was happening on Saturday? Are you going to be down in Columbus? Did you know about it? Or would you be interested in going?
No to all your questions except the last one. I'd be interested in going if I knew about it. But I can't because I found out 6 days early. Or 5 days early, I guess, if it's Saturday. It's just I love playoff hockey, regular season hockey. It's just interesting because the Stadium Series, in my opinion, is really, really cool in the right places. Mm-hmm. Because it's just like I went to the Stadium Series when Ohio State played Michigan at Browns.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see a thing. It was watching the screen the whole time because I couldn't see anything. Now, Soldier Field is different because it goes vertical like that and you can see down into it. I think that'd be really cool. But I think it's just Ohio State. It'll be interesting to see how they do it. Ohio Stadium's big, and because they have those boards, but the whatever wall goes up for, so you can never track the puck. If you're sitting too low, you'll never know where the puck is. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, it's an interesting, the better seats are honestly higher up, but they're going to be colder.
Yeah.
So who knows how it's going to go.
So that's what I remember. So I was also at the Ohio State Michigan game in Brown Stadium or whatever, Huntington Bank Field or whatever it is. But we left at halftime because we left at one of the intermissions because you couldn't see anything and we were just freezing. We were just up there, just like freezing our butts off. It was like, we can't even see what's going on. But regardless, it's going to be a ton of fun in the Horseshoe on Saturday night. I think puck drops at like 6 p.m. So not a super late night. So just add that to the list of things that are happening out in Buckeye land here this coming week. So a fun week ahead. Obviously, we got the combine all throughout the week. So keep your eye on it. If you missed our show on Friday, jump back into the YouTube and go watch it. We've got some good stuff from there and kind of outlined exactly who's going to be working out on what days, what to watch for, and all that stuff. So that's in the YouTube. Also a bunch of other stuff. We're going to try to keep it full with content throughout the offseason here. So hit that subscribe button if you're watching here. If you're watching on Twitter, thank you. Hit that follow, hit that subscribe button. Really, really appreciate it wherever you are tuning in. Also, head over to our website, si.com/college/Ohio State. That's got all things Buckeyes. That's Buckeye football, Buckeye basketball, both men's and women's. Women's team is rolling again, wrestling, all sorts of stuff on our website there. So head over there for all of your Buckeye content. But for today, that's a wrap on the end of February. It's the last week of February. I'm excited to be with you here. So for my partner, Kevin Woidke, I'm Anthony Moeglin. Thanks for joining us here on the Ohio State Buckeyes on SI YouTube channel.